The Badgers absolutely must address these three spots in the transfer portal this offseason.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers. Sorry for the later show today. I had some stuff come up yesterday, so I couldn't record at my normal time. But I'm your host, Ryan Herrings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Place a $5 bet. You get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Really do appreciate every single person that's going to watch this live, later, on the pod, on YouTube, wherever it is. Y'all are amazing. Thank you. Today's episode, we're talking Greg Gard's team. Why I don't think it's not like last year's team. I don't think there's going to be a big slump in them. Why you should get excited for NSD. It is National Signing Day week. But let's start in the portal. We've already started to see some movement, right? We've already seen a couple players leave. I want to get into that in a second. But what do the Badgers need to do in the portal this offseason? We have 2 years of sample size with this coaching staff, with the portal, with how it's working. And quite frankly, the portal hasn't been great to Wisconsin. Think of the numbers that they brought in. I've been saying this for several months. Look at the numbers they brought in. How many impact players have you gotten from the portal? Right. It goes back to my previous point of I think you need less is more this year a little bit. You need to use some of your younger players. We've been lauding the depth in the recruiting classes, right? We've been lauding how well they're recruiting. It's time to start utilizing some of that younger talent for depth. You need to be more strategic in the portal. Less is more. Go after a quarterback. Pool some more resources and get a quarterback. That's number one. Excuse me. That's number one. Talking about 3 spots the Badgers have to attack in the portal this offseason. The first one is its quarterback. And again, to a point I've been making for months, you got to get 2. I think you have to get 2. Look at the quarterback room. How can you go into next year? I mean, listen, the bare minimum, the absolute floor is you're bringing in another portal guy to be the starter. Like Carter Smith is a really blue chip, 4-star composite, dual threat quarterback coming in. He's not coming in to start. And if he is, you're going to win 3 games next year. It is what it is. So you have to get a starter, but I think you get a starter and a veteran backup. I think you need 2 in the portal, which is crazy because for how many years, for a couple of years now, we've been talking about we got to stop with this portal quarterback nonsense, the rotating them in and out. I'm seeing alumni, really smart former Badger players say enough of the portal quarterback spot. And I agree. Ideally, you get a guy that you can build in-house, but you look at the quarterback depth chart, and that's just not the realistic scenario we're in right here. It's just not. We don't have a guy that we can lean on. You're not going to start Milo Spasevich next year, the preferred walk-on from Minnesota. Cole LaCruz gone. Maybe Mentor is that guy. Maybe. I hope he stays. I hope he competes. I still like the physical skill set there, but we don't know. You're not going to go into next year with no competition for him. And the other guy's Carter Smith. He's a true freshman. You have Braden Locke coming back, but Braden Locke can't be your starter next year. He can't be. If he comes back and he provides depth, Braden Locke is a perfectly good number 2. There's no issues there. If you need him to come in and manage an offense to some degree, that's fine. Most teams don't have a great number 2. He can't be your starter next year. So you need at least 1. And I think you need 2. I think you need 2 quarterbacks in the portal this offseason. The second spot is it's defense line again. Now, it's tough, right? Like it's very difficult to find those guys in the portal. Most of those guys bust. We've had several of them that come in. Darian Varner did make an impact. Brandon Lane did make an impact. But Elijah Hills is maybe one of the best players on the defense. Just because it's hard to find them doesn't mean you can't try to do it. You have to bring in another body or 2 on the defense line. You just have to. And they're kind of like lottery tickets in the portal. A lot of them do not hit. A lot of them do not pan out. But you still got to buy them scratch-offs until you internally build up that depth, which is what this team and this recruiting staff has been doing. This 2025 defensive line recruiting class is really good. There's 4 really good, interesting bodies in that group, but they're not going to be ready next year. Maybe Xavier Ukponu, I think, could play a little bit because the dude is built like a fire truck without wheels, right? Like he could play a little bit, but you got to get another defensive line body or 2 just to add to the rotation. And if ultimately all you get is a rotational piece, that's a win. If it's a guy that can come in on the 2 deep and play, that's a win. So quarterback, I think you need at least 2. Unless you feel great about Mabry internally, and I don't see practices, obviously, unless you feel really, really good about where he's at, maybe you get one, but even then, I just think you need two for depth. I think you need 2 defensive linemen. And the other one I would really go after, this team needs another receiver. It needs somebody who can be more consistent. It's, again, difficult to find. They tried to do it. Eugene Hilton Jr. is coming in. That's a really nice piece. But Vinny Anthony is really, I feel like, the only consistent receiver on this entire team this year. You can't bring in a transfer quarterback and say, now be successful. And by the way, you don't have a lot of the receiver room. Like, it's like bringing in a master architect and saying, all right, we're going to give you Lincoln Logs. No, give the dude a redwood tree to work with, right? You have to give a quarterback some weapons. And I feel pretty good about what the offense line will be young next year, but I feel kind of good about the young talent there. I love the running backs. If you can keep them to stay, Darion Dupree and Dylan Jones, yes, that works. Now you maybe add another depth piece there, but you still have Gideon Atuka. Tight end, listen, if they could find a tight end, that'd be great too. Tight end's been a bit of a barren spot for a while, but I actually think Grant Steck, I like what he's there. I still think Tucker Ashcraft is a solid player. He's just a little too juiced up this year. He needs more reps, but you got to get another receiver. You look at the receiver room this year. Will Pauling was inconsistent. Vinny Anthony was really good. Then CJ Williams, it was a little hit or miss. Bryson Green missed some time. I thought he was okay. Quincy Burrows, we haven't seen flashes from yet. This team needs more weapons so that when you get a quarterback, there's actually pieces he can use. There's actually guys who can separate from tough coverage. And again, that's a tough thing to find in the portal, but go target a couple traits. Go target a vertical guy who can get down the field, who can win a little bit more consistently on 50-50 balls. I think if you keep Tretch in this offense, he's a slot guy next year that helps you. I think Kyle Barry Johnson is a guy that can help you, but you still need another guy on the outside. You just have to. So those are my 3 biggest needs in the portal, man. And defensive line, quarterback, and receiver. Let me know in your comments where you're at on that. I do think you can get depth in other places, right? Like if you have the ability to get a veteran offensive lineman that can help with the depth next year, do it. A veteran cornerback, do it. Like those things aren't going to hurt. It's like when you go grocery shopping, and when I go grocery shopping, I'm a disaster, right? I'm going for like Pop-Tarts, Doritos, chips and salsa, and IPAs. But listen, if I'm going to get those 4 things and I walk past an aisle that has marshmallows on sale, I'm probably buying the marshmallows too. My point is, in the portal, sometimes you have to be a hunter of target of opportunity. And if the target of opportunity is there to improve a position, do it. But the focus has to be on less is more this year. I don't want to see us bring in 20 guys, 15, 20 guys, and 13 of them bust, 14 of them bust. And then we're spending money on all these guys and then feel like you have to play them and the young guys don't get reps. That hasn't worked for 2 years. Bring in target specifically 8 to 10 guys. Get a quarterback, get a couple defensive linemen, a receiver, and fill in a few spots with depth, and then good. You're done. We're solid, right? The younger players have to start inheriting the upward tier of this playing time. They have to. Sink or swim to some degree, because you're not going to the portal just hasn't worked in the way that Wisconsin's wanted it to. And again, you have to use it. The portal needs to be utilized, but I think they need to be a little more targeted in the approach. And I think you need to rely on some of the younger players to step up. We got a bunch of comments in here. Let's bang some of these out quick. Roger Dodger says Miller Moss is in the portal. Listen, Miller Moss is better than Braden Locke. He's a bigger arm, bigger body. He's not very mobile, and I'm a little wary. I'm a little wary on a guy who had Lincoln Riley, had some of those receivers, and didn't look great, because he's not going to come to Wisconsin and have Lincoln Riley's system and Lincoln Riley's receivers. And I kind of want a mobile guy, so I'm probably out on Miller Moss. I think just name recognition alone, he's probably going to command a little more on the NIL area than we have that we want to spend anyway. I think I'm out on Miller Moss. I want somebody that's a little more mobile. Hoogs, catching alive again. What's up, my friend? Hooger's awesome. Ryan Hepting, D-line, they better spend millions. Also, would Brendan Marion come with a quarterback? It would be a nice for a package deal. So Brendan Marion, the UNLV offensive coordinator, I think so, but you just never know. You just never know. I would imagine so, though. And he's right, defensive line. Like, go all in on defense line, quarterback, and then fill in on the peripheries. It's not a guarantee for success, but that's what I would do. Tim Matthewson says defense line, receiver, quarterback. Same, brother. She said, Bucky says, I was looking for the video at 6 a.m. Yes, sir. Usually we get them out at 6 a.m. I do appreciate you guys with the later video today. We're going to take a quick pause there. Continue your comments, and then I want to talk about 3 reasons why you got to be excited about NSD this year. Some of the really, really impressive stuff this staff has done, plus one thing I wish they would have done a little bit better on. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. First, a quick break for our friends of the show over at FanDuel. FanDuel is your number one source, your best sports book, the official sports book of the Locked On Podcast Network, the official sports book of the NFL for a reason. Always do responsibly. And, next year, they're going to do over-unders again on the Badgers, and I'll probably take the over again. That's 3 years in a row I've taken the over on Wisconsin win-loss total. It is what it is. But if you want any of that type of action, FanDuel is the place for it. It's fast, it's safe, it's secure. The payouts are super quick, super easy. It's not like your grandma sending money through the envelope system and you never know if it's going to get there. No. FanDuel's not that. FanDuel is modern technology, modern payouts, modern security, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network for a reason. Do it responsibly. Right now, new bet of $5 gets you $150 in bonus bets guaranteed if you win. That's over at FanDuel.com. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. All right, let's jump back into this conversation. I want to hit on a couple reasons because, guys, gals, it is NSD week, National Early Signing Day week on Wednesday. Let's go. We feel like a rebuilding program right now, right? There's no bowl game to look forward to. This is like the Bears every year when they're looking forward to their top 5 pick. This is like the Washington Wizards every year looking forward to the lottery. It's kind of sad. It is where we are at, and it's kind of friggin' sad. There's no bowl game to look forward to. Like, the last time this happened, I was in a submarine under the Atlantic Ocean somewhere. Like, it's just ridiculous. But the point is, we look forward to what we have to look forward to, and that is NSD. And a couple really impressive things I think the staff has done. 3 reasons to be excited. Ready? Quarterback room. Bringing in Carter Smith is a game changer. And not because he's going to play next year, but because, A, they're still able to sell their vision to high-level recruits that have a lot of options. That's important. That means Luke Fickell is still getting players to buy in. And until that stops, right, until the pipeline of talent shuts off, like someone upstream turns the valve and no more blue chip talent is coming and the pipeline's off and you get a bunch of decommits and players stop committing and they stop coming and suddenly you have the 45th ranked recruiting class instead of the 23rd. Until that happens, there's still reason for optimism. They're still landing talent. And this is a late add in a team that wasn't very good this year. Blue chip at the most important position in the world of sports. I mean, is there a more important position in the world of team sports than quarterback? This is huge. You get a blue chip. This is, along with Graham Mertz, the highest ranked quarterback Wisconsin has gotten. I think he actually in the composite is a little higher. Be excited about tough, dual threat guy, a winner from an athletic family, a pretty good arm. Checks a lot of boxes. So be excited. The Badgers added the talent they needed in the quarterback room. Again, that's for the future. That's not for next year. But you got to stock the cupboard for the future. You have to. The other reason, defensive line. You got to be excited about this defensive line room. By the way, we're going to do a ton more NSD coverage coming up. So don't think this is it. This is just the primer. Defense, you added blue chip talent and you added numbers. The 2 things you have to do. You have to, when I say in the first segment, you have to go get some guys in the portal on the defensive line. Those are bandages. The long-term fix for the defensive line is building internally. It's 100% recruit, develop, retain. Recruit, develop, retain. RDR. It's 100% that. You have to find the guys out of high school. The Badgers got 4 guys in this class on the line. Jalen Williams, blue chip guy. Huge get. Former Michigan commit. 6'6", 260, long arms, multi-sport guy, offers from everywhere. Massive get. One of the biggest defense line recruits Wisconsin's landed. I was talking to Brian Smith, and he said, I think that's the best the biggest defense line recruit Wisconsin's ever landed. Hyperbole, maybe. I don't know. Really, really good get. And then I love the interior guys. You talk about what was the weakness of the team this year. They got ragdolled on the lines. Iowa ragdolled us. Nebraska bodied us, right? Teams just physically imposed their will. This team wore down. It couldn't get penetration. It couldn't stand up in the trenches when it had to. We saw it again and again and again. Minnesota did the same friggin' thing. So what did they go and do? They got Drayden Pavey and Xavier Pono. 2 guys just built like sawed-off tree stumps. Physical, developed, high floor, really talented interior defensive linemen. Not superstars. It's not Aaron Donald. It's not Warren Sapp. It's not Wendell Bryant for your old school Badger fans. It's not that, but really stout, solid defensive linemen that this team used to have more of. this team was built on controlling the trenches, and the foundation of that building was those defensive linemen in the trenches. They got 2 of them in this class. And then you still have Torrin Petaway. 6'5", 6'6", big frame, long arms, pretty high upside on him. He's more of a longer-term project. But you're bringing in 4 guys, 2 6'5", 6'6" guys. One's a blue chip or 2 interior defense linemen that are really stout. I think Ukponu could play next year. And Xavier Ukponu, I think he could be a bit of a Dylan Johnson where he gets reps next year because he's just so physically stout. Now, I wouldn't expect a lot because they're freshmen, right? But he could step in a little bit, and he's enrolling early, which I think is big time. The third thing is the offensive line. Here's the third thing I think you got to be excited about NSD coming up. They brought in another 5 guys. So back-to-back classes bringing in 5 offensive linemen, 2 blue chip guys, Logan Watts. Logan Powell and Hardy Watts. Yeah, I combined the Logan Watts. Logan Powell, Hardy Watts, both interior guys. I think they're both guards, center, really, really impressive offer lists, both 4-star-ish type players, physical, developed, high floor, tenacity, nasty players. You got 2 blue chip interior guys. The 2 tackles, Cam Clark, Nolan Davenport, athletic, really, really good athletes, long. Nolan Davenport specifically, I think, is one of the most underrated prospects in this class. His cone agility, like his testing numbers, his short area quickness numbers are off the charts for an offensive lineman. So I think he's a potential star, one of the most underrated guys in this class. And then big Mike Roski, the in-state Wisconsin kid from Watoma, just a man. One of my favorite guys I've talked to. If AI was to develop like a persona for a high school offensive line recruit, it would be Big Mike. I talked to him, and he said one of my favorite things as an offensive lineman is to make the little defenders fly. Right? Speaking about just pancaking them, I love the offensive line class. They've done a really good job the last 2 years in rebuilding that. Now they're turning over to AJ Blazik, who a lot of people, we all kind of love what he's able to do with linemen, and we think the vision there is on point. So rebuild the trenches, D-line, O-line, quarterback. You gotta be excited about this class from those aspects. The one thing I wish, there's a couple things, but the biggest miss right now is there's not a running back in the class. I know they were all in on Byron Lewis. There were a couple other players that were in on. I know there's young depth on this team. I don't love that you would skip a cycle and not land a running back. I just feel like there's got to be somebody out there. Yes, Byron Lewis we missed. I loved him, by the way. I'm all about putting the eggs into the basket, taking the home run swing. Byron Lewis to me is in a blue chip tier. We didn't get him. Pivot to somebody else. And there were a couple other players that they brought on campus visits. I think you have to bring in a running back every year or 2 because people leave. You can love Dylan Jones and Darion Dupree. There's no guarantee they're going to be here, right? You have to keep restocking that cabinet so you're not left empty-handed, so you don't have to go to the portal to find those fixes. So that would be the biggest fly in the ointment for me. Let's bang some comments out here. Hooger says, even if the defense lineman bust, you got young guys that can rotate through. You need bodies. We had no depth this year. We got it in the recruiting class. Yep, I agree. Justin Tyler says, feels like we can't get a quarterback till we solidify the OC hire. Also agree there. I mean, the OC hire is the domino that falls that leads to quarterbacks, especially in the portal. High school recruiting is a little differently, but yeah. Brian Strutt says, receiver might be okay with a good quarterback. Yeah, it's better, right? Like, absolutely. A good quarterback makes everything better. Let's just talk about the rising tide thing. A good quarterback makes your running game better because now they can't stack the box. It makes your offensive line look better. A good quarterback makes your receivers look better. A good quarterback makes your defense look better because now they're not on the field as much. So a good quarterback raises everything. Adam Pettis says, how do you feel about Snowden entering the portal? Yeah, let's talk about that one quick. Snowden entered the portal. Leon Lowry entered the portal. There'll be more coming. Good question, Adam. I love Snowden. Like I'm not ever going to be here and be one of those. I will never be the guy that when a player leaves, he sucked anyway. Sometimes fits just aren't there. Sometimes players have to move somewhere else. I think he's a safety. I've said Amari Snowden's probably a safety from the time he was recruited, but I really like the physical skill set there if it could develop. I think he wants to play corner, and I don't think he's probably a corner. He's also dealt with some family stuff, and he's going closer to home probably. We'll see. We'll see where he ends up. He's also a baseball kid, so maybe he's going to play baseball. I don't love it. I like having high upside athletes in the system, in the program. I think Snowden's one of those guys, but in the portal era, you're never going to keep everybody. So let's see. Brian Strutt says defense line, outside linebacker, quarterback. I do think outside linebacker, man, you got to count on Heiberger and Posa and Lafayette. Sebastian Cheeks, I thought, showed a ton of flashes this year. I think at outside linebacker, I do think you need more depth, maybe another body, but I think you're going to count on the young guys there. At least that's my hope. Robert Sorensen says, Ryan's wife, how do we spend so much at the grocery store? Ryan says it was on sale. That is me at like the grocery store, the Amazon store, the sports card store. Justice in Motion says Gentry flip. It's possible. This staff is still in on trying to find another cornerback, and there's a couple options out there. So look, if you're looking for something to splash on NSD, cornerback is one of them. Zach Gentry is definitely a guy. Zay Gentry, is definitely a guy to look out for there. Long, speedy cornerback, boundary guy. I love his film. Athletic, makes a play on the ball. We'll see. Definitely a guy to keep an eye out on. Robert Sorensen says Pat Max will lose a current commit on NSD. Book it. Probably. I mean, that's just the nature of recruiting. I think you could gain one or two, and I think you could lose one or two. It's certainly the world we live in, unfortunately. I think most of this class is solid, though. And if you lose one or two, I think that's kind of just the industry norm at this point. All right, we'll take one more quick break here. Come back. I want to get into some more of your comments and also talk about why I don't think there's a slump for this year's Grey Guard team like last year. We're going to do that next on Locked On Badgers. But first, let me tell you about our good friends over at Gametime. Gametime's incredible. We're going to be doing a basketball meetup this year. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Gametime to get a block of tickets, and we're going to cheer as a community. We're going to get like 8 to 10 tickets. We're going to have a meetup. We're going to drink. We're going to have IPAs. We're going to have wings. We're going to eat. We're going to talk. We're going to cheer. We're going to yell. We're going to talk down to the Gophers, and we're going to buy tickets to the Kohl Center. We're going to go watch Grey Guards boys bust some people up, and we're going to get those tickets on Gametime because it's the best prices. Cheap, fast, easy, simple. Like, why are you? I'm talking to you right now. We're making eye contact if you're watching this. Why are you buying tickets the hard way? Why? Life is hard enough, man. I'm enduring my first winter in Wisconsin in a long time, and you can see I have a stocking cap on. Like, life is difficult, man. Get tickets easier. What are you doing? What are you doing with your life? Get tickets on Gametime. Faster, simpler, easier, cheaper, flash deals. You're not going to beat it. Go get your tickets over at Gametime. Snag the tickets without the stress. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off over at Gametime. Let's talk about this wagon that Grey Guard has put together. Here's the thing. Last year, I'm getting a lot of people who push back a little bit on this year's basketball team and say, they started great last year, then they slumped. Why is this different? And that's a valid question. And maybe it's not. Maybe it's not different, right? But I mean, time will tell. But why do I think it's different? 2 reasons. The first is this team has more depth. One of the biggest issues, not just last year, but in the last several years, was if you lost somebody, you were in a world of hurt. Now, listen, if you lose John Tonji, you're still in a world of hurt. If you lose Stephen Croft, you're still in a world of hurt. But this team does have more depth. Last year, Tyler Wall gets banged up, and the team just kind of went into a tailspin. This year, legitimately, I think he can go 8 or 9 deep. We love what Kamari McGee's doing off the bench. Xavier Amos, I think, has another gear in him. Carter Gilmore looks better. Now, Janicki looks really, really good and solid. That's already 9 deep just with that group. And there's other break class in case of emergency things you can go to if you had to. This team is just deeper. It's more insulated against injury. I think that's the first reason why. It's not that they're not going to lose games in the Big Ten. They're going to have some ups and downs this year because this is not a perfect team. But I don't think it's going to mirror what happened last year where it felt like the bottom fell out. So that's the first reason. The second reason is this team is just playing better defensively. It's as simple as that. Will it sustain? Maybe. But even at the beginning of last year's defense wasn't good. Then it went into kind of a tailspin. But this year's defense, it looks better. It looks more cohesive. I think there was a lot of addition by subtraction from last year's teams in terms of defensive effort. Let me give you some numbers here. Last year, the team gave up 0.949 points per possession. So essentially, every time the other team had a possession, we give up 0.95 points, almost a point. That's terrible. That's really bad. For context, that was in the 18th percentile in college basketball. So we were a bottom 20th percentile defense in all of college basketball last year. The Wisconsin Badgers, a Grey Guard, Bo Ryan disciple team, was in the top 20, was in the bottom 20th percentile of defensive percentages. That's awful. This year, Wisconsin's in the 60th percentile. So they jumped up about 40 percentile points. They're giving up 0.684 points per possession right now. It's not a great defense, right? And this is buoyed somewhat by, we played some pretty bad teams, but we've also played a couple. Pitt's a good team. Arizona's a solid team. This number could fluctuate. I don't think we'll end up there, but we don't have to end up there to be better than last year. So I think the depth and just a better, more cohesive defense makes this team a little more slump resistant. Now, don't be surprised if you drop 2 or 3 in a row in the Big Ten, but I think those games will be closer. I think it'll be more competitive, and I don't think it's going to be the prolonged slump we had last year. So I would chin up, Badger fans are a little worried about it. Thomas Miller says trenches priority number 1. Need 2 to 3 more per class. Agreed. Smo says, who is the starting quarterback next year? Transfer or current roster? Transfer. I'd be shocked if it's current roster. I think it's almost 100% transfer. And maybe the next year too, right? Because unless it's Mabry, like Mabry, we'll see what Mabry does. Mabry is the X factor here. So we'll see what he does, but I do think it's a transfer. A couple more questions here. Mike says, hoping Mabry stays. I agree. The Gaming Republic, Curtis Smith had an interview with WISN over the weekend. He said he loved the atmosphere, said it's family oriented and liked the area. Yeah, Madison has that effect on recruits. This staff, coupled with Madison, if they get people here, they do a really, really good job. Hooger says they're going to get at least one portal running back. I agree. I still think you got to get a high school guy every year. Eucliders, late is great. I can get you live. What's up, my friend? It's great to be able to see everybody in the chat. It really is. Really do appreciate you. Michael says portal needs equal poor recruiting. I don't know. To some degree, yes. To some degree, I think Michael's dead on with that. I also think there's never a perfect team. Like, you can always find pieces in the portal to augment your team. Alabama, Ohio State go to the portal. Those guys recruit at the most elite level of college football. Like, Georgia goes to the portal, right? So you're still constantly, I would say it like this, leave no rock unturned. Any avenue you can use to improve your team, you do it. But if you constantly need big numbers in the portal, I think, which is Mike's point, yeah, that does mean you're not recruiting or developing well. I agree with that in the big picture. Justin says he's sold on Gametime now. What a pitch. Let's go, Justin. Come to the Badger game with us. We're going to get a block of tickets. We're going to make it look great. A couple more questions here. Kevin Will says, is TBD coming back? So I have heard that's like I think so. I would just caveat it with what else is the option for him, right? Like, he's coming back, and I don't think he's in the plans necessarily, is what I would say, right? Because he had a really bad injury during the season. If you just think of the rehab time to get back to where he needs to be, he's going to miss most of summer. Maybe he gets back for some fall camp. You just can't hitch your wagons to that. Now, if he wants to come back and compete and be depth in the room, everything I've heard about him is great guy, like really good teammate, incredibly nice human being. If he's comfortable coming back in a role of, come back to the room, rehab, but you can't hit your wagons to TBD. So that's where I would say there. Any other questions here? I'm just trying to see. I think we'll wrap it there. I mean, there's always a bunch of comments. I can't ever get to them, and I kind of get multitasked when I do it. I do appreciate you guys so much, as always. Thank you. On Wisconsin, a bunch of NSD content coming up this week. I think we'll have Brian Smith on. I think we'll have a Nick Osten thing. I think John Garcia Jr. We'll be doing player breakdowns like we did last year. I also have basketball coming up. Like, there is a ton of content, as always. Appreciate you all so much. Thank you for sticking with me on kind of a later show today. This has been Locked On Badgers on Wisconsin. We will talk later.